Hello, fourth graders. It is so nice to have you back here with me today. We are going to be starting our new year with a new unit, and this unit is on the novel Number the Stars. So, everyone has received the novel when you got your materials sent home or picked up from school. Your novel kind of looks like this. It might be a little lighter of a blue cover, but I want to make sure that before we begin this novel, I want us to have in this lesson I want us to have our materials out so that we're ready to go. This lesson is going to be split up into about 3 parts. We're going to be going over the historical part of the setting of Number the Stars. We are going to go over the vocabulary for our lesson, and then we are going to be reading the first 7 pages together. So please have out those materials, the novel, composition notebook, and writing utensil. And when you have those 3 materials out, you are ready to begin the lesson with me. So now that you have those 3 materials out, you are ready to go over the lesson with me. The first part that we're going to go over is the background and the history of Number the Stars. So this is our author, Lois Lowry. She was born in Hawaii and has written many books, but her most famous one is probably Number the Stars, the one that we are reading. She has also won many awards, including the Newbery Award in 1990 and 1994, which is like the most famous and most popular award that an author can get. So even though Lois Lowry was born in the United States and is American, the setting of Number the Stars takes place in Denmark in 1943. And I'm going to show you where Denmark is on a map in Europe. So Denmark is in Europe and it's sandwiched between quite a few countries. We see the United Kingdom on the left. We see Norway and Sweden north. We see Poland is on the east, and Germany and the Netherlands are on the south. So with that being said, during World War II, which was in 1943, there was a lot going on, and Denmark took a neutral position, which means they did not take a side on the war. The World War had many, many countries involved, and Denmark really did not want to be a part of it. However, it was difficult and kind of inevitable that they would be a part of it because there were a lot of countries around them that were taking a side. So like I said, the World War II, took place and it involved many, if not most of the world. It was fought between the Axis powers, which were Germany, Italy, and Japan, versus the Allied powers, which were Britain, the United States, the Soviet Union, like Ukraine and Russia, and France. So most of the countries were involved in some way, even if they were part of the Axis powers, the Allied powers, or even neutral, and they didn't take a side. It was the deadliest war in all of human history, with around 70 million people killed. So it was very, very devastating for those countries that were involved, and even those countries that did not want to get involved. World War II started in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. Great Britain and France responded by declaring war on Germany. The war in Europe ended with Germany's surrender in 1945. And the war in the Pacific ended when Japan surrendered on September 2nd in 1945. So this kind of shows us and explains to us why this war started. We see that Germany invaded Poland and then Great Britain and France started declaring war. Well, the reason Great Britain and France wanted to declare war on Germany was because Germany, long story short, wanted to take over Europe. So they wanted to take over a lot of the countries in Europe and gain a lot of power for themselves. And other countries did not want that to happen. So in order for that to stop, they joined the war as well. And that's why the United Kingdom joined the war, and later France joined the war, and it just kept growing and growing and growing until pretty much most countries were involved in this war. So like I said, Denmark did not really want to take a side, and they did not want to get involved in this huge war. However, unfortunately, because of their location, they were right next to Germany. They were north of Germany and are north of Germany, which made them in a very vulnerable position to be in. So at the beginning of World War II, in September of 1939, Denmark declared itself neutral. It did not take a side. And for most of the war, unfortunately, it was a protectorate, which means it was ruled by another country. So it was occupied and even became a territory of Germany. So because they were right north of Germany, Germany decided to take over Denmark and rule it. And I'll show you what happened on the day that Germany took over Denmark. So here's a little video of the German invasion of Denmark. Denmark is in blue, Germany's the red. This was all in one day. So we see how Denmark is slowly turning red, which means that the Nazi Germany is slowly taking over Denmark. It's going to change suddenly because Denmark is going to surrender and give up, which means that Nazi Germany has officially taken Denmark. So at 11:45 a.m. on April 9th, 1940, Denmark was officially taken over by Germany, which means people of Denmark could still live there. However, the government was controlled by Germany. German soldiers took over Denmark, and it was not their, they did not have the choice to make decisions anymore. They had to follow the German rule, which was very unfortunate for many citizens that lived in Denmark. So, like I said, Germany took over, and this left a lot of people in Denmark feeling helpless. Now, the reason that Germany wanted to take over Denmark, unfortunately, is because they wanted to have control of Norway, the Netherlands, and Sweden. And in order to get to Norway, in order to get to Sweden, they had to go through Denmark and take over Denmark first. So this is going to be a book about people living in Denmark during a time where Nazi Germany ruled their life. And here's just a couple of photos that I want to show you of what the city of Copenhagen, because we're going to be focusing on a city in Denmark, looked like when Nazi Germany had taken it over. So notice how instead of looking like a normal city, we see that there are a lot of, we would think of these like as army tanks going through the city. More soldiers have ruled. We even have speeches and propaganda being shown. And it's not really like a normal city that we would think of wanting to live in today, or even in the 1940s. And just to give you some perspective, this is what the city looked like before the Germans took it over. So this was in 1939, before World War II had started. So we see, unfortunately, a lot had changed. It's like their entire life, and any citizen who was living in that area was affected. And we are going to be looking at a couple of young girls who are going through this really, really changing time in their life. So I know that's a lot of background information to take in. We are going to be going over this throughout our unit, so don't worry if it didn't really sink in right away. I know this is a big start to our first day back. We are going to also be going over this in our lesson today in our Zoom, and we will be going through it throughout the week as well. But I want to move over now to our vocabulary and the reading section of our first part of this book. So our first vocabulary word is contempt. Contempt. Contempt is the feeling that someone or something is not worthy of respect. So you might be judging someone, putting down the law, or like what a judge would do in court, and you might be acting and showing that contempt. The next vocabulary word we have is sneering. Sneering is an adjective, and it is to express dislike and disrespect in a very open way. So we might see someone sneer, and that would show us that they are disliking or disrespecting something. One of our main characters in Harry Potter, we see Draco Malfoy, is known for sneering at Harry Potter because he openly dislikes Harry. And now we have civilized. Civilized is an adjective, and it means polite, reasonable, and respectful. If you are acting in a civilized way or manner, you are acting politely. So those are our three main vocabulary words for today. You will be having some vocab active practice after your lesson on Google Docs, so get ready for that. You can always refer back to this video, and you can also look at the chart that's on your Google Documents with these words. So now that we have gone over the vocabulary words, we are ready to begin reading this novel, Number the Stars. We are going to be reading pages 1 through 7, so if you'd like to, you can read along with your novel. You can have out your novel and read along, but I'll also have the text on the screen for you to follow along with. So we are beginning on chapter 1, and the title is Why Are You Running? So take out your reader, open to that page, and we will begin. Why are you running? I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. Anne-Marie adjusted the thick leather pack on her back so that her school books balanced evenly. Ready? She looked at her best friend. Ellen made a face. No, she said, laughing. You know I can't beat you. My legs aren't as long. Can we just walk like civilized people? She was a stocky 10-year-old, unlike lanky Anne-Marie. Lanky means like long and tall. We have to practice for the athletic meet on Friday. I know I'm going to win the girls' race this week. I was second last week, but I've been practicing every day. Come on, Ellen, Anne-Marie pleaded, eyeing the distance to the next corner of the Copenhagen street. Please. Ellen hesitated, then nodded and shifted her own rucksack of books against her shoulders. Oh, all right. Ready? She said. Go! Shouted Anne-Marie, and the two girls were off, racing along the residential sidewalk. Anne-Marie's silvery blonde hair flew behind her, and Ellen's dark pigtails bounced against her shoulders. Wait for me, wailed little Kirsty, left behind, but the older girls were not listening. Anne-Marie outdistanced her friend quickly, even though one of her shoes became untied as she sped along the street called Oosterbrogade, past the small shops and cafes of her neighborhood here in northeast Copenhagen. Laughing, she skirted an elderly lady in black who carried a shopping bag made of string. A young woman pushing a baby and a carriage moved aside to make way. The corner was just ahead. Anne-Marie looked up, panting, just as she reached the corner. Her laughter stopped. Her heart seemed to skip a beat. Halt! The soldier ordered in a stern voice. The German word was as familiar as it was frightening. Anne-Marie had heard it often enough before, but it had never been directed at her until now. So notice how this soldier is not a Denmark soldier. This soldier is a German, showing us that we are in a German-occupied city of Copenhagen. So the Germans rule this city. Behind her, Ellen also slowed and stopped. Far back, little Kirsty was plodding along, her face in a pout because the girls hadn't waited for her. Anne-Marie stared up. There were two of them. That meant 2 helmets, 2 sets of cold eyes glaring at her, and 4 tall, shiny boots planted firmly on the sidewalk, blocking her path to home. And it meant 2 rifles gripped in the hands of the soldiers. She stared at the rifles first. Then, finally, she looked into the face of the soldier, who ordered her to halt. Why are you running? The harsh voice asked. His Danish was very poor. Danish is the language that people in Denmark speak. But he's German, so he doesn't speak Danish very well. 3 years, Anne-Marie thought with contempt. 3 years they've been in our country, and they still can't speak our language. I was racing with my friend, she answered politely. We have races at school every Friday, and I want to do well, so Her voice trailed away, the sentence unfinished. Don't talk so much, she told herself. Just answer them, that's all. She glanced back. Ellen was motionless on the sidewalk, a few yards behind her. Farther back, Kirsty was still sulking and walking slowly toward the corner. Nearby, a woman had come to the doorway of a shop and was standing silently, watching. One of the soldiers, the taller one, moved toward her. Anne-Marie recognized him as the one she and Ellen always called, in whispers, the Giraffe, because of his height and the long neck that extended from his stiff collar. He and his partner were always on the corner. He prodded, which means he touched, the corner of her backpack with the stock of his rifle. Anne-Marie trembled. What is in here? He asked loudly. From the corner of her eye, she saw the shoekeeper move quietly back into the shadows of the doorway, out of sight. School books, she answered truthfully. Are you a good student? The soldier asked. He seemed to be sneering. Yes. What is your name? Anne-Marie Johansson. Your friend, is she a good student too? Lai was looking beyond her, at Ellen, who hadn't moved. Anne-Marie looked back up too, and saw Ellen's face, usually rosy-cheeked, was pale and her dark eyes were wide. She nodded at the soldier. Better than me, she said. What is her name? Ellen. And who is this? He asked, looking to Anne-Marie's side. Kirsty had appeared there suddenly, scowling at everyone. My little sister. She reached down for Kirsty's hand, but Kirsty, always stubborn, refused it and put her hands on her hips defiantly. The soldiers reached down and stroked her little sister's short, tangled curls. Stand still, Kirsty, Anne-Marie ordered silently, praying that somehow the obstinate 5-year-old would receive the message. But Kirsty reached up and pushed the soldier's hand away. Don't, she said loudly. Both soldiers began to laugh. They spoke to each other in rapid German that Anne-Marie could not understand. She is pretty, like my own little girl, the tall one said in a more pleasant voice. Anne-Marie tried to smile politely. Go home, all of you. Go study your school books and don't run. You look like hoodlums when you run. The two soldiers turned away. Quickly, Anne-Marie reached down and grabbed her sister's hand before Kirsty could resist. Hurrying the little girl along, she rounded the corner. In a moment, Ellen was beside her. They walked quickly, not speaking, with Kirsty between them, toward a large apartment building where both the families lived. When they were almost home, Ellen whispered suddenly, I was so scared. Me too, Anne-Marie whispered back. As they turned to enter their building, both girls looked straight ahead, toward each other. They did it purposely so that they would not catch the eyes or attention of 2 more soldiers who stood with their guns on this corner as well. Kirsty scurried ahead of them through the doors, chattering about the picture she was bringing home from kindergarten to show Mama. For Kirsty, the soldiers were simply a part of the landscape, something that had always been there, on every corner, as unimportant as lampposts throughout her remembered life. So notice how Kirsty has always remembered Germany and German soldiers taking over Denmark. So she has not known life without that. However, the other girls, we have Ellen and Anne-Marie, they know that their life has changed suddenly because of the German soldiers taking over Denmark. Are you going to tell your mother? Ellen asked Anne-Marie as they trudged together up the stairs. I'm not. Mother would be upset. No, I won't either. Mother will probably scold me for running on the street. She said goodbye to Ellen on the second floor where Ellen lived, and continued on to the third, practicing in her mind a cheerful greeting for her mother, a smile, a description of today's spelling test, in which she had done well. But she was too late. Kirsty had gotten there first. And he poked Anne-Marie's book bag with his gun, and then he grabbed my hair. Kirsty was chattering as she took off her sweater in the center of the apartment living room. But I wasn't scared. Anne-Marie was, and Ellen too, but not me. Mrs. Johansson rose quickly from the chair by the window where she had been sitting. Miss Rosen, Ellen's mother, was there too, in the opposite chair. They had been having coffee together, as they did many afternoons. Of course it wasn't really coffee, as the mother still called it that, having coffee. There had been no real coffee in Copenhagen since the beginning of the Nazi occupation, not even real tea. The mother sipped at hot water flavored with herbs. Anne-Marie, what happened? What is Kirsty talking about? Her mother asked anxiously. Where's Ellen? Miss Rosen asked in a frightful look. Ellen's in your apartment. She didn't realize you were here, Anne-Marie explained. Don't worry. It wasn't anything. It was two soldiers standing on the corner of Ostrom Brigade. You've seen them. You know the tall one with the long neck and the one who looks like the silly giraffe. She told her mother and Miss Rosen of the incident, trying to make it sound humorous and unimportant, but their uneasy looks did not change. I slapped his hand and shouted at him, Kirsty announced importantly. No, she didn't, Mama, Anne-Marie reassured her mother. She's exaggerating, as she always does. Mrs. Johansson moved to the window and looked down to the street below. The Copenhagen neighborhood was quiet. It looked the same as always. It looked the same as always. People coming and going from the shops, children at play, and the soldiers on the corner. We are going to pause right there because we are at a very important part where they reach home and they finally face their moms and they do not know how their moms are going to react. I want us to pause here and predict of how they are going to react. So in order to see how they might react, we want to be looking at their mood. And what we learned about mood, we learned about this in a single shard, but we're going to be learning about it again in this unit. So a mood is a feeling that a piece of writing creates in a reader. Writers can bring up certain feelings or emotions in readers through words and descriptions. Usually the mood refers to an atmosphere of the literary piece as it creates an emotional setting that surrounds the readers. The setting of a story, the author's word choice, and even a character's dialogue, or two characters talking to one another, can build a specific mood. A description of a beautiful scene can give a peaceful and calm mood to the readers. On the other hand, describing a tense chase scene or a chaotic thunderstorm could cause a frightening or anxious mood. So after Anne-Marie and Ellen have gone home with that encounter with the soldiers, I want you to tell me what type of mood might the mothers be feeling right now, or what type of mood are you as a reader feeling as you are reading this. So I just want you to write a couple of words. You can write I want you to write the first sentence of this paragraph describing what mood means. And then I want you to tell me what the mothers might be feeling and what you are feeling based off the mood of this whole scene that is happening in the apartment. So that's going to be your stop and jot. Just write a couple of words and sentences about why you think this mood is. You might say that it is frightening because, you might say that it is an anxious mood because, and we will discuss this in our class in a few minutes. Just get a couple of notes down. I know this is a longer lesson, so you don't have as much time to get this down, but we will be discussing it in our lesson and in our Zoom today. So I will see you very shortly, fourth graders, and I hope you enjoyed our first lesson on Number the Stars. Bye-bye.